What is up, ladies and gents? You know what time of day it is? It's XCN time. And in today's video, we're going to be talking all about XCN. We're going to be discussing what we're seeing here on the charts, and I'll be giving you guys my price prediction for where I think XCN is going over the next few days and my targets for 2025. So be sure to stay tuned for all of that. Of course, if you are a new viewer, then welcome to this channel. If you do like this sort of content, hit the like button and subscribe for more. If you are a returning viewer, as always, welcome back to the channel. It's great to see you all here. So we're looking on the one-day chart now here on OnyxCoin, and what a sight it is. We've seen 3 days of straight pump now. We're literally 3x from the bottom here, which occurred right after Trump released his tariff news to the world. And now things are looking so much better on the charts. Of course, if you're a holder here at OnyxCoin, first and foremost, I want to hear from you guys. Let me know down in the comments how you guys are feeling. If you're not yet a holder, do not worry. I still think the price is going to be going much, much higher. And in this video, I'll list out several reasons why I think that. But first, let's talk about the context on why we are seeing this pump here on OnyxCoin. So basically, if you've been around on this channel over the past few weeks and months, you would have known and completely felt the sadness as OnyxCoin was just bleeding out over the past few months. The price was pretty much going lower and lower every single day, but it was also painting an important technical pattern. And this pattern we were monitoring here on this channel. It was this kind of pattern where we see these two trend lines pointing downwards. Now this upper trend line is the main resistance here for the honest coining price. You can see that every time the price came up to this resistance, it just bounced back down. And we also had quite an important support here where every time the prices came down to this level, we bounced back off. So it was kind of bouncing in between this resistance and support over the past few months. But of course, as the channel narrowed, we were going to see on its coin break one of these two trend lines. Now this is quite a well-known pattern. This is a falling wedge, and this pattern is bullish. So having seen this on the chart, we knew that at some point there was going to be a breakout here on its coin. And the price target from this pattern is well documented as well. It's the first test of the support, which is this distance here to the first test of the resistance. We can drag this measuring tool to wherever we see a breakout, and from this falling wedge pattern, we could predict that the price target was sitting at roughly 2.4 cents. So that's exactly where the price of OnyxCoin tagged just before we see a slight retracement. So if you manage to catch that breakout, first and foremost, congratulations to you guys. Of course, this in my opinion might be an area where we see a bit of a resistance. So if I just go on the smaller time frames for you guys, maybe over the next few hours, we see something like this. Because like I just said, the price target from this falling wedge has now been reached. And furthermore, again, if you've been following the channels, you know that I love these Fibonacci levels. But if this is your first time seeing this, do not worry. This is basically something that I draw every time we see a pump. And as you can see, the reason why I draw them on the chart is because, generally speaking, OnyxCoin loves the fib levels as places of support and resistance. So for example, on that initial pump here in mid-January, we saw the prices come to the 0.618 fib before seeing quite a large retracement. And again, when we pumped to the very top and we started seeing the price fall, these fib levels were areas of supports and resistance. Look at the 0.5 fib here at 1.1 cents, for example. We saw that as a strong support for the price on the way down. So now what we're seeing is the prices approaching this 0.786 fib. So what I expect, like I said a bit before, was that on a smaller time frame, this general area between, say, where we are right now to 2.6 cents, we could see this as an area of resistance. We might see the prices kind of forming some sort of consolidation that might, again, look something like this, where we kind of just trend sideways for a little bit before a resumption of this uptrend. But once we get past this 2.6 cent level, there is not much stopping OnyxCoin, in my opinion, until we get to the previous high. And that this sits at nearly 5 cents. So in my opinion, this outcome, if we can break past the 2.6 cent level, is going to be quite likely. And if we get past the 5 cent level, then the next levels that we are looking at lie on these three Fibonacci levels. You can see that actually the next target after the 5 cent level is not until 11 cents. So you've got another 2.2x up if we can bust the previous high there at 5 cents. It's basically like going into price discovery at that point. There's really not much resistance anywhere between this region all the way to 11 cents. And of course, past 11 cents, you can see that there's two more targets for OnyxCoin. There's 17 cents at the 1.41 fib, which I really like because actually that's the previous all-time high here on OnyxCoin that occurred back in 2022. And if we can get past the previous all-time high there, the golden fib is telling us that we could see a price of 32 cents here on OnyxCoin. Now these two are my targets for 2025. The first target, like I say, is the previous all-time high at 17 cents. And my main target here for OnyxCoin is 32 cents. Now, obviously, we're off to a very good start. But the way I'm playing it right now is just level by level. So I want to first see on its coin bust this 2nd of June Fibia. Right now, we are starting to see the prices kind of consolidate a bit, which is absolutely normal. In an uptrend, it can't keep on going up without pausing forever. Of course, when we see these pauses, there's absolutely nothing to be concerned about. And so with every pump that you see, there's always going to be people taking profits, and that's why we see consolidation in an uptrend like this at some point. Again, nothing to be concerned about, in my opinion. Of course, there's some really good signs here on its quid as well, going back onto the one-day chart. And in fact, just clearing up this chart a little bit so I can make my points a bit better. So one of the reasons why I think OnyxCoin could be going much higher from this point is have a look at the trading volume first and foremost. Of course, what I said in my previous videos for a successful breakout, we wanted to see an increase in volume, which we did. But have a look at the trading volume that we saw back in January. The trading volume here on its coin was so much higher. So if we replicate something like we saw back in January, imagine the trading volume replicates what we saw back in January. Imagine what it would look like on the price. If this small bar here on the volume isn't enough to push the prices this high, imagine what it would look like when more trading volume pours into OnyxCoin. That in itself should lend itself to much higher prices here on OnyxCoin, in my opinion. On top of that as well, the same thing goes for the MACD. Now, the MACD is something that we religiously watch here on this channel because it gives us really good signals. Of course, it hinted to us that we could be seeing a new bullish trend when I was making videos a few weeks ago because we saw a beautiful divergence come from the price. And the MACD, basically the price was heading downwards as the MACD was pointing upwards. We even saw bullish momentum pick up while the prices were falling. So we knew that there was going to be a trend reversal in the near future. Now that's exactly what we have seen. We start to see this new bullish trend emerge, but nonetheless, the MACD, although it is bearish, although it is bullish at this point, is nowhere near as high as it was back when we saw that initial rally here in January. There's still a long way for the MACD to go before we see the kind of momentum that we had back in January. And that's very bullish again for the price. Because if the MACD replicates what we saw in January, which is very possible, we should be seeing much higher prices here on OnyxCoin. So this really excites me. We barely seen the MACD nudge. We barely seen the trading volume nudge when we compare it to January. And we don't just see that on the one-day time frame as well. We even see that on smaller time frames. We can see that again, the 4-hour chart, exactly the same thing. The MACD, although it's slightly higher at this point, still nothing like we saw back in January. So there's a long way for the MACD to go on multiple time frames, in my opinion. The RSI, another strong indicator, basically showing us something fairly similar. Let's just get rid of these arrows. So the RSI on the one-day chart is showing us a value of 78, which is technically overbought, but I think it would be a mistake to construe this as a sell signal. Because of course, if we have a look again back in January, you can see that when we started seeing overbought signals here on the MACD, that was when the price went from about 0.2 cents to this 1 cent region here. So if we sold when things went overbought, we would have missed out from the second run, where on its coin went up from 1 cent all the way to 5 cents. So basically, we would have missed out on an extra 5x here on its coin. So we are starting to see overbought regions. But the first thing is, when we were completely overbought here on the RSI back in January, the value was near a 95. And right now we're at 78, so there's still definitely room to the upside. And secondly, the best signal for me from the RSI is when we start to crash back down from overbought territory. So if we see something like this on the one-day RSI, right here as the RSI dips down below overbought, that would be a good time to sell, in my opinion. We also saw that here at the February, which would have been close enough to the top to make it a decent sell signal. So that's kind of my thoughts right now. Of course, there's a lot of room for these indicators to move higher, RSI, MACD, and trading volume all hinting that we could be going much higher. Of course, for the price, that would technically mean that the prices continue to head up here on OnyxCoin. Of course, at the end of the day, I'm still bullish here on OnyxCoin, and my long-term targets still remain 18 to 32 cents. And I think so far, we've just seen the first of many steps to getting to that destination.